Thank you very much. I am on stage with the jungler for Vitality's, in fact, Shook. So congratulations on your victory. Although you'd already locked up playoffs, you now know 4 of the teams that will be in playoffs, aside from yourselves, of course, G2 Esports, Unicorns of Love were able to secure it up today, and H2K. Now, who are you looking forward to facing off against in those playoffs, and I suppose why?
Like, we're Team Vitality. Like, we have to beat everyone to be #1. Like, this team was built to be #1, so of course we're not afraid of facing anyone. Like, we have to beat everyone. If we don't beat everyone, like, we just don't see it as our team. Like, we're made for winning, so it doesn't really matter who we face.
I like it. Very, very confident, but also noting that you have to just beat absolutely everybody. So fantastic. Looking forward to seeing how it plays out. You've now got a week off as well with IEM coming up. Only Origin, Fnatic are going to be going representing EU. How are you going to spend that week? How important is it for a team playoff bound that you now are to have that week to kind of not have to worry about more matches on the table?
Like, some of our team are going home. Like, just have a little break. Of course, we're going to keep on playing League. Maybe scrim some teams that go here for the event that's coming up, and yeah, just have a little break, practice against good teams, and yeah, we're still going to practice, but we're looking forward to a little break.
Well, you've definitely earned it. So once again, congratulations on that win. Looking forward to seeing you guys in future weeks and in the playoffs. And for now, we are going to send it back to the analyst desk to wrap up that game and break it all down to end the week.
Thank you so much, Pyra. I always love listening to Shook because we were like, is this the super team in the beginning? And he always goes like, we are made for winning. We got to win everything. We got to beat everyone. We are the super team. And they are 6-0 over their last 6 games. Obviously, they are peaking at the right time. This break that's coming in now, will it actually do them good or not? Maybe if they get to scrim the likes of SKT, it could, of course, be even better for them.
Could do. I think if I was scrimming teams right now, I'd be like, give me QG. Just I want those scrims against QG because they're forcing early games. But honestly, for Vitality right now, gone seem to be the days of the first week where they lost to Rocket. I think all of those fears seem to have been quelled recently. So I think that Vitality are in a very good spot.
I actually don't. I don't know, man. If Vitality scrim QG, I think the game ends at 12 minutes because Vitality will just lane swap and then QG will be like, yeah, what is this? Teams actually know how to play this game in the early game? Wow, okay. We can't endlessly team fight?
We're going to have a lot of fun with the LPL teams at IEM. It's going to be fun to watch.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's take a look at the standings actually to see where we are because playoff spots are being locked in. So let's take a look. Of course, we said already that G2, Vitality, and H2K have locked their spot in playoffs. With this Element's loss, also the Unicorns of Love have booked their spot. That means that there are only 2 spots left. And unfortunately, Giants are eliminated from playoffs. That's getting tight now. The UOL made it, and obviously Origin and Fnatic are within reaching distance.
But it's so likely that it's going to be Origin and Fnatic, obviously. So
he's playing it safe.
LCS confirmed scripted, but no, the teams that are right below Fnatic and Origin, they're improving, but at such marginal rates that it's not enough to even bridge that gap. Maybe they can pick up one surprise victory, but it's like a 3-game difference right there. If literally my 30-second memory is correct, and I mean, you're not going to bridge that.
We need one of the bottom 4 teams to enter week 8, go 2-0, and then go into week 9, go 2-0 as well. And we haven't seen any of these teams really show they could do anything against most of the top 6 teams. There's been like one upset here and there, and that's been about it. Even when the team is like, oh my god, they're winning this game, you know, they're so close to winning. And then in the end,
Giants today,
you know, they were so close. And then when it matters with the very last call you have to make, where everyone is kind of panic and also a little bit hype, you know, everyone is kind of yelling. Those calls goes wrong and they end up losing anyway. And again, that's just a mark of the top teams and the bottom teams.
Yeah, let's talk about that most recent lock-in for the playoffs. The Unicorns of Love, again, hopeful today, actually. Sheepy was on the desk. We got to talk to him. He was very, very confident. We had Vishishashi doing well, which Vishu always likes.
I mean, we know Chachi's going to do well, even on a Ramos pick. Small moves, he wasn't even that impactful in this game, actually, the rest of the Unicorns.
I still want to stress that, like that one macro play they did where they did the early TP when they were using the whole Rift Herald setup. I don't know, man. If you do that against a good team, I think you straight up, like, you lose so much momentum there.
But I think the thing is they didn't have to fully commit to it. They could have pushed up the wave.
I agree.
And then, you know, moved to mid lane and kept Chachi bot lane to farm because he actually fell pretty far behind from also TPing because he got 0 CS. That could definitely have been a change in that game. They got a tower, though, for it because Spice is like, they didn't want to mirror. They didn't want to mirror it. Corki's like,
they're just like, recall with the Corki. It's fine. We'll try and fight this. But honestly, the biggest thing today for the Unicorns was they just didn't get challenged. at all by Splyce. Like, Splyce didn't want to make active plays on the map, didn't want to challenge any objectives, and I don't know where that leaves us with the Unicorns right now, because it's very difficult to have that read on a team when they are almost facing no opposition in a game.
Right, and I think also just for Unicorns, we're expecting them to beat those teams down there.
Yeah.
It's very important for them to keep doing it, because they want to lock in that 4th spot at the moment. You don't want to risk dropping down to being number 6, because if you are number 6 right now, as Origin are, you will face either G2, HUK, or Vitality in that quarterfinal match. So we have seen the clear top 3 teams, and we now see the middle of the pack with Unicorns, Origin, Fnatic. You definitely do not want to face one of those top 3 teams if you want to make it to the semifinal. So Unicorns have got to stay up there in number 4 or 5, avoid obviously going down to 6.
Not only that, 6 actually has the hardest road anyway. Even if you were to make it past that first team, there is a reseeding after the first round. So you then face the highest seeded team. So you then face number 1. Whoever you get, that's what bracket you end up in, if you're placed 6.
I mean, that will likely just be Vitality, the way the season's playing out.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunate events with H2K, G2, one-dimensional, still struggling in the macro mid-game. Vitality, they just look clean. Yes, their win against Elements, I think, was needlessly slow. But I don't think...
They're super safe.
Well, yesterday they maybe were a little too aggressive, and maybe they had a little talk with the coach.
Sean spoke them. He was sitting here being like, "Oh man, we gave over those 2 kills."
He found that belt over in the Gambit house. He brought it with him. It's like, hey guys, this time behave.
No, but I think we can all agree that Vitality looks the cleanest at this point. Of course, Youngbuck yesterday said about G2, we have more up our sleeve. We are learning more. There are different picks coming in.
But it's not the picks. It's just the approach to the mid game for me for G2.
So my question is, do you see that happening? And do you think that G2 can adopt 1 or 2 more styles and then rise above by playoffs?
Well, it's ironic because Perk's comments was if you can only play one style, you're a bad team. Basically, it was the TLDR. And if they can't, then it's kind of going up against what they said earlier.
Well, again, with G2, it's not the pick and ban phase. I don't even think it's about specifically only playing one style of composition, because they have like 3-4 different comps they've been showing, some poke comps here and there and whatever. Perks on Lissandra now, very aggressive. Yeah. It's more just the team needs that kind of guy who's saying, like, what's the next play and how do we set up for the next play? Once you get into mid-game, once you get that goal lead. So like, okay, guys, remember to buy pings. When Vitality's playing, every back, there's like 4 or 5 pink wards. Every back. That's something I feel like is very easy to teach a team, and also very easy to learn as a team. It's actually just start thinking about it. So some of the issues G2 does have, I feel like are fairly small, but if you don't fix them, it looks bigger in game.
It also trickles down. I mean, you initially have that one little part where, you need to pick up 5 pink wards. That sounds easy. And then you need to communicate with your support. Like, how many side wards do you have? Like, let's look at the map. Where do we want our wards? Plan ahead instead of just walking in, placing 2 wards and like, the side stone, it's empty. Let's set it up again. So, especially as we get far into the season, G2 came out swinging. Very few teams really understood the vision game, but as we progress, we see teams finding optimal play patterns. I mean, how often do we not see Kasing just base, refill side stone, come out? Vander does the same thing. So that is something where G2, regardless of what style they're playing, whether it's poke siege, whether it's skirmish, whether it's split push, they need to perfect that mid game so they can actually play from even. I think, because very often they were so good in the early game that they played from ahead, and that creates nasty habits.
And I think it's really good they have lost a few games, because they're still setting that tide for first. Because when they were winning, everything was awesome. Just keep playing the way you're playing.
Was awesome.
Yeah, again, keep picking the same champions because it's going well. You don't really have that wake-up call where, why did we lose? We didn't do this and this in the mid game that other teams are doing. Now they've been losing a few, been struggling a little bit against some of the other teams. It's healthy. Learn from it this week. Again, I'm sure Youngbuck is going to talk to the players and make sure they have it ready for week 8 and week 9 or for playoffs.
I think one thing that has been pleasantly surprising for G2, though, is that overall our expectations of Kikis coming into the split were like, he'll only play tanks, he'll only succeed against top laners on tanks. At least against the majority of the top laners, he's able to play more than just tanks. I don't think he's ready for that against like a Cabo or perhaps an Odo, somebody that is going to fight you very, tough in that top lane. But he's been doing well.
Yeah, it doesn't have to though, because the meta is completely shifting towards tanks top right now. Somebody said it on the desk today.
Yeah.
Coach.
Who said?
I don't know. I can't remember.
About Freddy specifically.
Yeah, but
also,
I think it was Yamato probably because
literally 30 seconds.
Yeah,
ago.
it's just like the meta is shifting towards tanks, and then some of these pure tank players like Untara as well that we were saying, why is he only playing tank tops? He's like laughing right now because predicted the meta game. So it should be all right for Kikis going into playoffs.
Yeah. interesting. G2, you say, well, they were winning a lot. Then they kind of had to pick up the slack when they started losing and made some adjustments. H2K, good from the beginning. Vitality, good from the beginning, great right now. Then we have those teams.
They lost in Rocket day one.
That's true.
Shaky beginning.
Shaky beginning.
After week 1. But then like week 2 was better, and then
I
it was
think everything
good.
but week 1, day 1.
Day 1. Remove that one, and then it's been pretty good.
Good. And then we had Daylor here on the desk, and it was really interesting that he said, it's not about going like this for us. It's about looking where we can go for Fnatic then. Looking where we can go. If it doesn't work out, we go back to square one, and we look what can work for us. We go up again, and that's why it's a long-term project.
Eventually, it has to start working, though. And I feel Fnatic is really lacking that same thing that G2 is lacking, that one guy, the overarching voice, because you can be like, okay, Reckless, you give it a shot. Yeah, not really working out. Let's replace our support. This guy who's still working on it. Maybe Fevin start shot calling. But eventually, like, if you don't find that guy that can actually take control of a full roster and move these little chess pieces around on the board, then you will be very stunted in your growth.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems is, now it's a good point, you know, we try and expand into certain things. If it doesn't work, we go back to basics. I don't feel like the basics have even been there for Fnatic in all the games. I think that's been one of the main issues, is that some of their very normal things we see from professional teams in terms of, you know, buying blue wards, you know, like blue trinkets and like vision control, lane swaps, don't split push to enemy inhib at like minute 12 when you're level 8 or 7 or whatever. Like those basics, those are basics to me, and there have been some issues Fnatic have struggled with. They've actually been doing well when they get kind of pushed out of the comfort zone and then got in super tricky situations where they're down like 10k gold almost at 20 minutes. That's when this Fnatic lineup has kind of come online, and they've had some crazy comebacks. We need to see more from Fnatic, but again, we are also very harsh on them because they are Fnatic. Had this been another team with these 5 players, we wouldn't have been so critical on this team. So, hey, they are currently sitting as number 5. They're in the playoffs or almost in the playoffs, need to win like one more game. I think Fnatic is happy enough with the current performance.
Indeed, they need to win one more game. Of course, they're going to Katowice next week. Let's talk a little bit about that together with OG. It was quite interesting to me that when the Clyde change came, we heard, hey, IEM Katowice is coming up, so we had to make a change. Now we asked Daylor here, you asked him what is the goal, and he said, we will see, you know, first pick up some practice and then see where we go. So that has definitely changed. How do you think our teams are going into that?
For Fnatic in particular, they're going to have such a rough. So for people that are unaware, they're in Group B. Their first match is against Jagu Reapers, who, if you're not aware with that team, very poor in the early macro. They kind of fall a little bit behind early, but then their team fights are on point. They're just really good at forcing those team fights and seemingly forcing your opponents to kind of opt into that style. And I don't think Fnatic is as crisp just yet in that regard, and I feel they will have kind of an impossible mismatch because the counter to Jagu Reapers is good macro play, and Fnatic doesn't offer that.
For clarity, we'll bring up the groups first, so people who may not have seen them yet can know, because of course next week, week 8, will be in Katowice for Fnatic and Origin. We're going to start by taking a look at Group A, which has Ever, TSM, Royal, Never Give Up, and...
Best name ever, by the way. Royal, Never Give Up.
And then in Group B, we will have SKT, Fnatic, CLG, and the QG Reapers, and it is double elimination in each bracket as well. Yeah, it looks tough for the European teams in that one, for sure.
I do want to say, though, when it comes to Fnatic versus QG, if Fnatic plays what we saw like last week, that kind of style where you're trying to go late game and you try and team fight your way out, they will lose, because QG is so good at late game team fighting. But Fnatic today changed a lot. Actually surprised us in the pick and ban phase. It was a lot more focused on mid-game. The Lee Sin, Lissandra combo between Febivan and Spirit was absolutely fantastic to watch how they could camp the mid lane and also set up picks further in. Okay, Rocket didn't put up any wards to spot them, but I think if that is a test or an example of how Fnatic might approach IEM and a team like QG, then I think Fnatic can actually hurt them quite a bit, especially in the early to mid-game, because that was a fairly clean game by Fnatic, this one. I like that style.
It was clean, but there was a massive overextension repetitively from Betsy.
I'm not saying they weren't mistakes, but QG makes those mistakes. Like today, they lost to Royal Never Give Up 2-0.
Yeah, that kind of screws everything. Because
randomly just running out mid lane and dying multiple times.
Yeah, coming in today, we were like, yeah, Royal Never Give Up, you know, kind of slouching, just not that good. But QG, you know, they're team to watch, and then they lose, and then everything goes out the window. So just like China does every time.
Fnatic's playstyle today, Fnatic's playstyle today is what they need to have for IEM. Not the let's go 60 minutes and just try and like late game team fight against SKT and QG and so on.
But you look at some of the tougher competition Fnatic have faced, like the G2 game. If they end up in that situation, I don't think teams are going to make the mistakes that G2 did against Fnatic to let them back in the game, as you said. I think Fnatic were fairly gifted that game. I think, yes, they will make mistakes, but I think especially in the scenario of the last couple of games for Fnatic where they've really had to fight back into a game, I feel like the game is likely to close by that.
So play today's style.
Right, but can they get that? That's the real question, is how can they manage when they maybe don't know the team so well?
And provided they lose, obviously double elimination, under the assumption that CLG loses to SKT, we actually have a cool matchup there too. CLG playing...
What are you assuming here?
Yeah, it's a bold assumption here that the reigning world champions will knock out any team. But yeah, CLG playing there. I like what they bring to the table because they seem to play more macro-oriented, very split push with Darshan there in the top lane. And I want to see how Fnatic can deal with that, how they can react with that, because I think that's just a really cool stylistic matchup. So I kind of hope to see that matchup. Either in the winner bracket if they both surprise, but more likely in the loser bracket for both.
Yeah, we definitely have 2 EU teams going into IEM not being favorites by any means.
No.
Like, there's honestly almost no pressure on Fnatic and Origin because nobody expects anything from them here. You have QG, who was the best team in China coming into this week.
Yeah.
You have Royal Never Give Up, who just beat QG, so I guess we can put them top now. They're leading their group in the LPL as well. SKT has been slumping, but it is SKT still, and they've been playing against some very tough competition over in Korea. Okay, the Africa loss they had was super weird, but still. There are a lot of other teams we're looking at, ranking above OG and Fnatic, which should mean you're here to learn stuff if you are Europe.
And that was going to be my point for you guys, because obviously having played on at least the European, if not bigger stage, how much experience for a new team like Fnatic will they be able to take from an event like this, just from having more stage time against varied opponents?
Stage time, I don't think is the most important part. I think it's the scrimming part, because I think one thing is looking at a VOD of like SKT.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, I understand the play they're making. Let's try and do the same. You don't get all the small details that often happens, also because the camera can only follow so many things. When you play against them yourself and a play happens against you, you have that VOD you can go over. And that's where you learn some of the small details you then bring back to Europe. And other teams don't do that. And that's where you can learn quite a lot.
Yeah, that is the cool thing. Like, in a scrim environment, especially centralized within a region that you then don't get any access to other regions, you get so many gentlemen's agreements almost. Like, Europe, every season, the lane swaps will eventually come to a certain way that they get played out. Or early games get assumed to get played out. When you watch SKT, the camera isn't always on Faker, but that doesn't mean you like the matchup will play out the way it does, because if you play against Faker, you can guarantee that he will walk up on every CS. Suddenly, your mid laner in a matchup that you think in your strategy in Europe generally goes even, might suddenly lose, and that shifts everything around. So the experience of just playing these very strong teams from other regions with different scrim habits, with different play patterns is invaluable, because if you can take one of their plays and save that up, that's something you can use somewhere in playoffs.
Sadly, we don't have the Rocks Tigers here.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where you can learn stuff right now, and not really the way SKT's been playing.
Across the board, we may not have some teams that we would say are the strongest in the respective regions. I think that's a valid point that you bring up, and something I personally overlooked. It's not just Fnatic and OG that get access to those special scrims, but people here who've made the connections in our teams also have the opportunity to scrim those teams that are finally in Europe.
Even because they're not even in the tournament. You know, if you're coming in here as QG, I think you can get your pick of the litter of any European team. SKT as well. I mean, yes, SKT is slumping, but who's going to say no to scrim with SKT?
I mean, Rio is just going to ask them, and H2K is playing them.
Yeah. Probably.
Right there.
If we end up seeing, funnily enough, the QG Vitality scrims, do you think QG could learn something from Vitality about your lane stops at the beginning? In that situation, do you then have a fearsome QG that can do both?
I mean, looking at Worlds historically, it's taken China a while to adapt to Western lane swap or at one point the Korean lane swap, because they always look really strong in certain aspects, but it just seems like nobody in that region actually adapts to the lane swap meta very well, and they make peculiar choices there, and that kind of shifts our perspective whenever we watch a game. Like, oh, they're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong. If they can learn in a week's time, I'll be very impressed though.
So, who wins IEM Katowice?
Cool. That's a...
I mean...
No sounds, just...
Normally you could very easily just say SKT, but like with the way SKT's been playing coming into the tournament, it's not been looking that great. I was looking at China in many ways in this, both QG and RNG, and kind of saying like this was the tournament where China had to kind of bounce back on the international stage after what happened at Worlds, where obviously the teams disappointed so much. RNG, after the 2-0 win today, might look like they're the favorite, honestly, coming in. But they are a team who relies so much on snowballing early game with Mata, putting them deep vision, and they make some stupid mistakes. But so does Fnatic and Origin. Like, obviously, a lot of the teams at IEM will do that. RNG can really punish you if you are a slow early game team, and that could make them one of the favorites.
Yeah, definitely one of the favorites, especially like Xiaohu and MLXG, jungle mid combo. Just the first few weeks when I watched Royal Never Give Up, they just had impressive synergy. Like, really, really fun to watch what they could actually do in terms of destroying the enemy mid laners. And they went up against like some really solid mid laners there. So for me, the tier 1 teams coming in here are, QG, RNG, and then SKT, because I think with the Gragas being reintroduced in the meta, it relieves some pressure off Bengi. SKT, you can never count them out from an offline tournament. It's still always just that little bit different. Obviously, they're so used to traveling as well, because China will fly over here. Maybe jet lag will influence them again. SKT is such a seasoned team in terms of just international travel.
It's always the safe one to pick. You know, like, oh, SKT is going to do well.
So for me, actually, I will just say SKT will win it.
Okay.
I think for me, I honestly feel like QG in a week can pick up phase 1 and most of phase 2 of the lane swap that's done here. I actually think if they can just solidify that, then they should be able to fight, because we're not sending the top teams from Europe. It's not the top teams from the LCK. It's not the top North American teams. So as long as you don't lose too much in the early game, their team fighting, I think, can hold them through.
Obviously, Ever. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I have no idea.
Ever is going to be super dark horse coming in, because yes, they look very good in the off season. They're in
players back.
They're in Korean Challenger. Got Key back, one of the star players on this lineup. His Bard is fantastic, by the way. You're gonna
you don't have to convince me.
You're going to love it. But it's hard to judge Ever, because, again, they are playing in Korean Challenger. Currently second place, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, they should be
They're
second.
tied for first on points.
Tied for first, right. Okay. I think Ever is going to be a good team, but I don't want to put them in the tier 1 among the other teams, because it's been such a long time we've seen them against other top teams.
My problem for me is they're playing some weird stuff. They've played like Malzahar in 2 games, lost 1, won 1, played like Ryze after the nerf. I don't really have a good measuring stick on where they are from their weird pick and ban phase.
One more thing. Out of Group B, SKT, Fnatic, CLG, QG, Reapers, who can Fnatic beat 100%? And out of Ever, TSM, Royal, OG, who can OG beat 100%?
No one.
No one. Put the money on?
Oh...
There is no one these teams can beat 100%.
100% is a tough one. But I say it's favored OG in the TSM matchup.
Ha. Forgot about that one. It's in there again. I don't know how it always keeps happening. Oh, even there?
Even there?
They're looking rough, man.
I think both teams are looking super rough.
The one cornerstone for Origin, Sven, he's actually starting to go down as well. So as his complete coin flip is like heads we win, tails we lose. And TSM at least is on the up and up, I feel. A tiny bit.
TSM just keep doing this thing where their early game is okay, and then they're just like, okay, well, we don't know how to control side lanes, so let's just go to the mid lane and try and 5v5 again and again and again.
I mean,
I don't know.
It doesn't matter because they won't make it out of group. I think Ever and RNG will make it out of that group.
It's the kind of matchup where you can by no means already point out a favorite to that one. So, like, there's no team or Origin and Fnatic 100% favorites to win in this tournament.
Cool. Thanks for answering my question. And now for a look at the week's standout performances here in Berlin.
No, I feel bad.
Yeah, we got to go to
We're
quick
shooting
shot.
down
We
Europe
got to
now.
go to quick shot.